Good morning and welcome to So San Francisco, Internationally Black, where we visit with black artists who are creating around the world. And this month, we are visiting with two artists who will take us on a journey to Korea, Taiwan, and Morocco. First off, we'll be chatting with Kahlid Eliiah Tapia, aka the Soul Brother, an American actor who has appeared in 35 Korean films. Then we'll be chatting with PJay Phillips, a Bay Area native who has performed as a nightclub and jazz singer in Taiwan, Morocco, and France. So sit back, relax, and enjoy San Francisco, Internationally Black, with Kahlid Eliiah Tapia and PJay Phillips.
악동 없는 이야기는 재미없잖아. As a foreign actor, if you think you're going to just stand out automatically in Korea, then you're absolutely wrong. I am leaving my country, passport in hand, visa in hand, and I'm going to a place where I don't speak the language, no one looks like me. This is the most nerve-wracking thing I have ever done.
And something we both are really interested in is international performances.
Okay.
And we've been watching German performances, French performances.
Nice.
You know, so we've been to different countries, and then we hit the mother lode with the Asian countries. I had no idea that there were black actors getting work, and you especially were intriguing because your career kind of began in Korea.
It absolutely
so if you will introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who Kahlid Eliiah Tapia is and how he got to be so fabulous.
No problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Kahlid Eliiah Tapia, as he just said. And about, oh my goodness, 10 years ago, I was reading a book. The book is called Think and Grow Rich. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. Okay? And there's a poem in that book. Okay? And the poem says, I bargained with life for a penny, but life would pay no more. How I begged that evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is just an employer. He will give you what you ask. But once you have set the wage, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed. Any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. Idris, Ratimi, I'm telling you, I was in Tampa at that time, working for a university as a recruiter, and I read that and I literally busted into tears. And I said, oh my God, Kahlid Tapia, what do you want? I want to be an actor. Do you want anything more than that? I want to live abroad. And I said, okay, let's get it done. So I took back all of my furniture. I was renting furniture, sent it all back. I started looking for different jobs. I had a friend, she had taught English in Turkey. I started looking at Turkey first. Turkey didn't have the same deal that you get in Korea. So I started looking at other countries, and Korea had the best deal. Free ticket there, free ticket home, free rent, good salary. I was like, okay, no problem. I'm gonna do a year in Korea.
What have we been doing with our lives?
Yeah, I was about to say, why are we not in Korea?
I said, I'm gonna do a year in Korea. I get to Korea and I met a young lady who is my best friend to this day. I told her I was gonna be doing this today. She's all excited. And she said to me back then, put your headshot and your resume on Craigslist. See what happens. And I'm like, Craigslist? I don't want to get shot. I want to do movies, you know? But that's where it was in Korea. I put my headshot and resume on Craigslist, and it just snowballed from there. And I started learning what it took to be an actor, getting my foot in the door, learning what it took to network. And Korea really taught me, because when you're in a country where you don't speak the language fluently, you really got to put yourself out there. So I was constantly at film festivals, and I had certain paragraphs memorized. They would say, "Hello, my name is Kahlid Eliiah Tapia. I'm an actor here in Korea. If you ever need an actor, please call me." And it was just that little bit that I had memorized, and I was passing out my business cards, and it didn't matter to me because I said to myself, I didn't believe in the glass ceiling that everyone else believed in. They were like, you're a foreigner, you're African American, you can only go so far.
Mhm.
I've always seen a glass ceiling as when you're underwater and you're looking up and you're about to get air. That's what a glass ceiling is. You're breaking through to get air. That's all it is. And that's how I've always seen it. And I never limited Korea. And because of that, I had 35 credits, 3 awards, a BBC News interview. I said, you know what? Whatever comes my way, I will take it. And it was really a very rewarding experience.
So you like, yeah, you put your headshot and resume on Craigslist, and then you said you started getting offers. How did you? What was the first offer? What was the first experience, I guess, that
Oh,
you had
oh my
shooting a film?
goodness.
How did that come about, and what
My
was that
first
like?
experience was a guy named Ross Barnett.
Hmm.
He was a director. I don't think he's doing anything now. And he wanted to do a short film. I was totally ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, finally it's happening. So I got to do his short film and he liked me. So he used me again in another short film. I think one of the wisest things that I did while I was in Korea was I knew I was going to be coming back to America at some point,
Hmm.
and I needed to make sure that what I had in Korea was to the American standard, whether that
Hmm.
be my resume, whether it be my acting. So I said, okay, I can't, there are no acting coaches in Korea that teach in English. So I had to travel. I traveled to the Philippines. I got to meet Ivana Chubbuck in the Philippines, and I got to meet her again in,
What?
yeah,
What?
in,
What
in
was
Japan.
Ivana Chubbuck doing in the Philippines?
She does worldwide workshops all over the world. Yeah. And I and somebody recommended her book to me, and I was
I
like,
love her book.
oh my goodness, I'm being trained right now in her technique, and it is so difficult and so amazing at the same time. And I looked at this book, I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. And I broke that book open for Timmy, and I could not put it down. I went through that book in like 11 days, and I said, I gotta get this technique under my
Yeah.
belt
Yeah,
because I
can you?
was doing Race by David Mamet. I was doing a theater
Okay,
production
yeah, yeah,
at the
yeah,
time, and I said, I need to get this technique and use it for this
yeah.
play.
What is
And that's
what is the essence of Ivana Chubbuck's technique? I'm sorry to say, I'm
no,
not
no, no problem. She
familiar with
has
her.
what's called
Yeah.
the 12-step technique. Okay?
Okay.
There are 12 steps. For example, the first one is the
It's like
overall objective.
Mhm.
Then the next one is the scene objective, your
Okay.
obstacles, and your
Okay.
substitution. The reason it's extremely different is because all of the people that train in her technique, you have to dig into all of your emotions that you have usually covered up
Mm.
or you have usually ignored, and all these things that people have said that this is the way you should be. You got to get rid of all of that and be as totally naked and vulnerable as you can. And that can be extremely frustrating, but it's so rewarding when it clicks. Trust me, it is
Yeah.
it is really a great technique. So
Yeah.
when I so when that young lady recommended that book and I read it and I loved it, I was like, I wonder if she does workshops. And I contacted them and they're like, well, we're going to be in the Philippines. If you want to be an observer, it's this amount of money. So myself and another actor went from Korea to the Philippines, and it was the most eye-opening experience I've ever seen because to watch her teach her technique, and she doesn't pull punches, she really digs into you deep. And all those things that you don't want to talk about in front of 300 people, you're about to talk about it if
Yeah.
Anna is going to be teaching.
Yeah.
So just get over it, right? So her technique was absolutely amazing. And then from there, I knew I needed as many acting coaches under my belt as I possibly could because Korea didn't have the English acting coaches that I needed. So if it wasn't the Philippines or Japan, there was a point in time I was going to go to China, but that casting director workshop didn't fall through. Or I was bringing people over. I brought over a gentleman, Theron Patterson was his name. and he was teaching at the Busan International Film Festival, and I tried to sneak into his class, but they wouldn't let because the Koreans wouldn't let me in. So I was
Oh
like, oh,
no.
bummer. So I met him later, and I was like, would you like to come and do a workshop in Korea? So we flew him over, and he
Oh.
got to do what was called camera placement. It was more director oriented, but it helped me to see what a director sees from their perspective, which is always helpful for an actor.
Very much.
Wow.
What is the, I mean, the landscape? I mean, you said you've done 35 films in Korea. So it seems like, despite what you heard about being a foreigner or being, African American, that there obviously were roles for you, or at
Oh my
least
goodness.
roles
I
created for you, perhaps. Yeah, what was it? Are there lots of roles for like an American, or were things
Yeah,
created for
most of the
you?
time,
Mhm.
most of the time it was American roles. My
Mm.
first role was in a movie called Super Monkey Returns.
Oh
And I
God.
and I got a little bit lucky. Yes, it's Super Monkey. The Monkey King is a big thing in Asia. That's a big
Yeah,
folklore.
super monkey.
So I was playing the American representative, right?
Okay. Oh,
But the
that's
thing was, Obama had just gotten elected. So
uh,
since I was the American representative, of course, everybody was calling me Obama for the entire day. I'm like, oh my goodness, Obama, yeah, come, we're ready, Obama. It was it's funny, but back then I'm like, are you guys serious right now? It was so hilarious. But it was really good, and from there, I um I got I started meeting other directors, either from Europe, from America, and started doing short films with them. And it was so interesting because I would go online to Facebook groups, and I was seeing people hold up signs saying, "We'll work for credits." They were actors. "We'll work
oh
for credits." I'm like,
wow.
guys, you're over here struggling to get a role, and I'm over here doing feature films in Korea. You really got to get out of that whole America is the only way mentality, you
Mm.
know? So I said to myself, how can I express that in a more effective way, in addition to making myself more known in America? And that's how the Soul Brother blog was created. And I started blogging on a regular basis on my experience, the mistakes that I made, and what people should be doing in order to succeed in an overseas film industry.
I always say those challenges stretch an actor. And if you're only working in this market and you're only working in this city, you really don't have all the experience that an actor really needs to be the best.
That's
A,
right.
a wide range of experience, travel, knowing all kinds of people, working across economics, all of
Mhm.
that to me is essential.
You are absolutely correct. And one of the things that I said in one blog, I was like, this is the reason why I started pushing to speak in Korean in certain films. In the Korean room, I was able to speak in Korean. In the
Yeah.
last film I did that was called Fabricated City, I got to speak a little bit of Korean. I was like, it's important to do that because when you get back to America, when you speak Shakespeare, Shakespeare technically isn't our formal English language. It's Old English. It is foreign to most people. When you listen to it, when you speak it, most people don't understand it. If you can do a foreign language, trust me, you can transfer all that skill over to
Hmm.
Shakespeare and vice versa. It's
Mm.
so helpful. Absolutely helpful.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that probably explains why those Nigerians are so good at Shakespeare.
Right? Oh, and they're so good at Korean. It is ridiculous how good they are. I'm, I was so jealous. Every Nigel I saw, just speaking fluent Korean every time. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And they make it look so easy. But then,
Okay.
of course, they're working in it, on a regular basis. I was taking classes twice a week or something like that, where they actually have a job and they have to speak it on a regular basis. So it's
Hmm.
it's it's a little bit easier for them. But I was, oh,
Yeah.
they made it look so easy, so
And
easy.
they are everywhere.
I was like, oh, of course Nigerians were there. I was like, oh God, here we go.
The Nigerian takeover.
Oh, yes.
And but I tell you, some of the best parties, some of the best food, the Nigerians,
That's right.
hands down. Hands down. If you wanted some good eating, you go to Itaewon and you find a Nigerian restaurant. Oh,
Wow.
perfection.
They have Nigerian restaurants in Korea.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so I just want to hear more about like what life was like in Seoul. So you lived in Seoul.
I did live in
Great.
Seoul, yes.
Yeah,
And
and I yeah.
life was, it was, I loved it because I experienced racism for the first time in Korea. And here's
Oh,
the weird
what does that
part.
mean? Yeah, tell me more about
I
that.
grew up in the South. I
Yeah,
grew up in North Carolina,
North Carolina. Yeah,
and I didn't experience racism, not
yeah.
blatantly in my
Mm-hmm,
face.
Mm.
mm-hmm.
But having said that, I wouldn't change anything that I experienced in Korea. It was
Yeah,
just a phenomenal thing. So, one of the things I can't stand about being in America is that I have to own a car now and drive everywhere.
yeah.
The subway system in Korea is one of the top two in the world.
Oh wow.
You can get anywhere. And I mean, the distance from Florida, from Orlando, Florida to Miami for less than $30. It is amazing, you
Hmm.
know? So my when I first got there, you could tell that there people would stare at me all the time when I was on the subway. I had to get used to the kimchi in the morning smell. That was really strong. Uh, I had to learn that the redder things are, the redder the food, the more I stay away from it. I don't like spicy food, so
uh,
if it's really dark red, that is a red flag. That food is going to be spicy. But
danger.
I found the different kimchis that I knew that I would enjoy, you know. Um, but it was when it came to the film industry, there wasn't a lot of racism. It was more in the education department when I was
Hmm.
teaching English.
Mm.
So one day I was at a friend's house and I was looking for a new job, and I saw an advertisement and it said bachelor's degree required. I'm like, check. TESOL certification, check. 2 years experience, check. Loves children, check. You know,
I like him or not.
check. I can fake it, right?
I like him for money.
Exactly. But then I got all the way down to the bottom in big, bold black letters.
Oh shit.
No black people allowed.
Oh.
Idris, Ratumi, when I tell you it hit me like a ton of bricks, that
Yeah.
hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said to myself, oh my God, this is what it feels like. This is racism right here.
Mm.
Not being accepted when you have all the qualifications and the only thing stopping you is the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And when I felt that, I was shot back to my years in college. I pledged an historically white fraternity. I didn't go the Alpha Kappa route that most black men would go, right? And I called my dad and I said, Daddy, I'm thinking about pledging an historically white fraternity. And my father gave me to date some of the best advice I've ever heard. It doesn't matter if it's a black fraternity or white. You always have to remember that you are a black man. And when that hit me in Korea, that's what came to my mind. I was like, this is me being African American in Korea. This is what this feels like, racism at its finest.
Mm.
But the best part was that was like my second year in Korea. After I left Korea, so many things changed.
Hmm.
I was seeing the change throughout my 8 years.
Mm.
More interracial relationships. They were using black cartoons in the education department instead
Hmm.
of just white blonde cartoons. And I
Yeah.
was like, man, all of the change, advertising more African American models and so forth. And it was beautiful to see the change happen over
Yeah.
the 8 years that I was there. So I was really happy that I could be part of that, you know, because
Yeah.
I would like to think that I had something to do with that in some indirect way in being part of film, in being part of the different acting groups that existed in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. It sounds like you were.
I
I'm
hope so.
curious about that. You had that first experience, or just what did you get a sense from people who live there about why it is that someone would feel that people would put something like that in an ad that was accepted practice?
The private schools were really strict on who they wanted to teach their children.
Hmm.
And they had this concept, blonde hair, blue eyes is better. And here's the weird thing.
Wow.
They really mean blonde hair, blue eyes.
Hmm.
If you're Korean and you want to teach in an English school, you would be overlooked if there was a blonde hair, blue eyed person coming in, even if you were Korean. I had friends that were Korean American and they had the toughest time trying to find work because of that. And it didn't matter if they had masters, any type of education. It's just that persona that says blonde hair and blue eyes is the best. And I literally mean blonde hair and blue eyes. If you were a brunette, it was a little bit harder for you. It's weird. It was the weirdest thing.
What if you were like Beyonce and you're like a black but you were a blonde?
That's what I
How did
was
that work out for you? could you just get a wig and?
How many times I've seen Koreans dye their hair blonde?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do. They dye their hair blonde. They cut their eyes so that the eyes don't slant. And not all of them do that, but some of them are really into that. You know, they want to. And I'm like, why would you want to make yourself look this way when you have such a beautiful look already? Because they were some of the most gorgeous people,
They
you
are.
know,
I agree.
and those that were open to being friends with foreigners, some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And to this day, I just sent a message to my Korean agent. I said, is there anything I can be doing to help you? Because I would still love to come back to Korea and do another film. Because that would be just amazing, you know? Because the country, I owe so much to that country. I don't even think they realize how much they did for me, you know? So when I'm up there accepting my award, there's going to be about a 30 to 45-second segment of my speech, all in Korean, thanking the Korean film department, film
I
industry.
can't wait to see that.
Yeah. But I've seen certain Korean films, Old Boy, The Host, Parasite. I mean, the film industry. I mean, they're just some amazing filmmakers. They're an amazing art.
And Bong was just amazing. And as soon as he won, I went on Instagram and I sent him a message congratulating him in Korean. And I don't mean that I know him personally, just I posted something on Instagram speaking in Korean, saying congratulations, because he crossed over an entire, I guess, a border, because usually the Korean films would only be in the foreign section.
Yeah.
But he didn't win Best Foreign Picture. He won Best Picture.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, did you hear what he said? I love what he said. They were like, "Oh my God, you got an Oscar nomination," and it was like, "Oh, the Oscars. Oh yeah, that's like a regional award. That's just an American thing." He was like, that's nice." He was like, I have a Golden Palm from the Cannes Film Festival. I have a Venice International Film Award. I mean, the Oscars are like a provincial thing, but that's nice. And I loved that. I was like, yes.
It's nice. True, too. It's very true.
So, I appreciate
it. The inspiration of Korean films, I think of Quentin Tarantino's allegiance to Korean films and how much he studied Korean films before he started making films. And I think what I've seen, what I've been able to see, and I gobble them up because they're just the character studies, but also the acting in that film Coin Room that you did. The acting in that film was excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's a short film. They were ordinary. They're average actors. They're not like the Meryl Streep of Korea. Right. Those girls were turning in some really interesting, not just great performances, which we tend to love great performances here, but they drew you in by interesting actions that they completed, interesting choices they made.
Hello, mister.
I am fine, thank you.
Oh, it looks like it's your first time. Looks like it'll be room C for you. It'll be the third door on the right. You have fun now. Wow.
Kahlid, can you tell us what is a coin room? So you're in
Yes.
a movie called
Oh
Coin
my
Room, and a
goodness.
Coin Room is a very interesting
Okay.
location, as we have
So
learned.
yes, it is a very interesting location. So to be clear, it is not a whorehouse. Okay. We need to set that precedent right now. So if a gentleman goes into a coin room, he gets his coins, he gives cash for his coins, and he goes to a room. And he is literally seeing the bottom half of a lady. So if you can imagine a lady bending over a table and she has on negligee, all right? And that's all he can see. He puts the coin in and he gets his business done and leaves. The reason it's different from the whorehouse, you don't have to interact with the young lady, okay? There's no interaction whatsoever. So that's what makes the coin room different. And it's very strange because I have never seen one in Korea. The director was like, it was an old thing, you know? I was like, okay, that's really interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a coin room.
Well, you were describing sort of like what would be happening is that, you know, the business would be happening, but the women are all like hanging
Oh
out
yeah, that's
while
right.
this is going on, like playing cards or something around a
Yeah, the
table.
women are inside. They could be watching TV on a tablet. They could be playing cards with each other. They could be talking to their concierge, ordering and eating food, because they're literally bent over doing whatever they need to do with the other women that are there, you know. And then they're yelling to the guy in the back, "Hey, not so hard," and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've got to see this movie.
It's
It's
on YouTube. It's
insane.
in Korean, but I really urge you to watch it because I enjoy. It's a short. It's 38 minutes long, I think.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there was a scene where you entered the women's room. They called you into the room,
Yes.
and there was
And
an interaction. And I want to know a little bit more about that scene.
Sure. I said to the director, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I said to the director, I really want to speak Korean in this film. And that director was one of the ones that was like, okay, I was begging, I was pleading, I was like, please let me have an opportunity to speak Korean. So he wrote it in for me, the lines that I said in that scene. So I open the door and I say hello to everybody, and I'm kind of flirting with the ladies and everything, asking them what it is that they want for lunch. And they give me their request, and I come back out and I'm like, ham uh jajangmyeon duge jjigae I deal I 한국어로 어려워요. As in Korean is really difficult. I can't remember what she said. And then the lady yells at me, telling me what it was that she ordered. It was so much fun. And I was
Oh,
so
that's
appreciative
great.
that he did that. He was really accommodating in that sense, you know. That whole team was just great. Just
Yeah.
and that director was really well known. He won an award for a movie called Yogido, and that was about maybe 5 years before Coin Room had premiered. But he was really well known. Great guy.
So
Now, in Coin Room, you flirted with the women and the men.
And the man.
Yeah.
Yes, I was bisexual.
I saw,
Absolutely.
yeah, I
I
missed seeing the
couldn't get
trailer
enough.
or seeing the clip on your reel, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, oh, what's this movie about? What's going on here? I need to see this movie.
Yeah, I told the director, I was like, listen, I'm gonna play this as a bisexual. He was like, okay, you do your thing, and he just let me run with it, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
What was who was your character in Coin Room?
I was the concierge. I
You're the
was the person that
concierge.
would
That's
greet
right.
all the men as they come in, give them their cash and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you were saying that these coin rooms are no longer in operation.
If they are, I never saw one.
Okay, they're
You
very
know,
maybe
'cause-
they're really underground or something,
Yeah.
or
She's gonna go find it.
basically, I'm like, so where is
Where
the?
is that coin room exactly?
Play some of that Siri. Where is the nearest coin room?
Yes.
The movie industry in Korea or in Seoul, where you were, and I don't know if you performed all over the country or just there. What is it? I guess is it? It sounds like it's a pretty big industry. How I guess how would it compare to something like, you know, Hollywood or to what we have here? Is there like the same sort of size or you know and variety of
Great,
projects?
great question. And thanks to Bong Joon-ho and people like Park Chan-wook that did the big films that were recognized at the Oscars, Korean film is just mainstream now. But when I first got there all those years ago, and all the foreigners that were there were trying to make names for themselves and everything, and there was actually a guy, an African guy there. His name is Sam Ochir. Terrific guy and way famous in Korea. And he was doing a reality show. I have to be honest. The reality show he was doing is not the type of acting I would have wanted to do, but that was his style. So he was doing his thing, and he was really well known. And because of people like him and other foreigners that came before me, they were able to really build up the foreign element in Korean film, and Korea started patterning itself after Hollywood, and or they would pattern themselves after Hollywood and a little bit after China, because a lot of the Chinese movies are pretty big. But Korea is holding its own now. And back then at that time, they were still pretty big, but they weren't necessarily doing a lot of foreign roles. So when I would audition, it would literally be like a family reunion, because in America, you see all these people that look exactly like you, but in Korea, they say, we want a foreigner. So every foreigner is coming to audition. So you walk in and you see all your friends, you're chit-chatting, you're eating and whatnot. And you know that one of us is going to get that role. You know what I'm saying? So it was great to see how they grew as an industry, and how the Park Chan-wooks and the young and up and coming film directors and everything started making a name for themselves. And they started doing that from Busan Film Festival to Bucheon Film Festival. Those two film festivals are probably the greatest heavy hitters, because Busan is the largest in Asia,
Okay.
So it was definitely a growth. But in my opinion, from the time of 2010 to 2017, Korea shot forward when it came to the Korean film industry. Absolutely.
And the last time we had a guest from China, and she was talking about how difficult it is for foreigners to work there, or to, especially in the entertainment field. But it sounds like Korea is much easier to break into, or much more accepting. Is that accurate?
So that's a good one. That's a good one. Because I looked at China, and she's right. China has so much when it comes to the size of auditions, and they have like cattle calls and stuff like that. So it can be a lot more difficult in China. It was still hard in Korea because you need a certain visa, okay? And if you don't have that visa, then you need certain permissions from your school, all right? So I had to break away from the public school and go to a private school so that I can get a specific letter that said, Kahlid Eliiah Tapia has permission to do any and all work, including film, television, and theater, and voice work, right? And that letter, I had to get it notarized and everything, and I had to take it to my agent, and actually I have to take it every time I go and do a film. But the whole thing about the visa, that's always a grind. For foreigners, especially foreigners that want to do film, it's always over your head. Oh, is this going to affect my visa in any way? How is this going to affect my visa? It's always that question. So we always had to be cautious of that whenever we made decisions to do film. So we had to make sure that everything was in line, because Korea can be very strict when it comes to doing work that you're not supposed to be doing with an improper visa. And they should be. That's absolutely fine. You're there in their country, you should definitely respect their laws and so forth.
I'm a big fan of Lovecraft Country, the HBO series, Black African American series.
Right.
And they did a whole chunk of it in Korea.
Really?
Yeah, they have a Korean character they fall in love, but she turns out to be one of these I don't know, it's a Korean mythological character, has a lizard's tail and kills men.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
He was a monster.
Not Super Monkey.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of a super
Super
monkey.
Lizard.
Yeah. That's exactly what he was. He's like this super lizard, and he's like, this love's not going to work out, right?
Okay.
But they did whole scenes in Korea. One whole episode was in Korean.
Wow. I did not know that. I would have to check. I'm gonna have to check that out.
I want to go back now that you're talking about the development of film and its movement outside of Korea. I think that must have something to do with the decision to place this African American story alongside this Korean story.
Nice. Okay.
So, you said that you did Race, David Mamet's Race.
Yes.
Where did you do that?
At what was back then, it was called the White Box Theater, which was produced by the Probationary Theater Company. And let me tell you, Idris, I didn't know how many N-bombs were dropped in the play.
Oh.
And it was that, so imagine the director is white, he's from Ireland, you know, and he looks at me and says, Kahlid, I would love for you to do this role. So it's myself, my friend Lauren. Lauren looked at me and said, Kahlid, you realize what this play is about? And I'm like, absolutely. He's like, you're not gonna be offended about if I say the N-word. I was like, no, I want you to bring it. And there was one practice for TV. We were dropping it left, right, and center. And the director had to put his hood on and dig himself into his seat like this because he was just so embarrassed with all of it that was coming out. And we were bringing it and we didn't care. Oh, that was a great play. It really was. David Mamet really wrote that well. It was well done.
Wow. And where is that theater located?
Ooh, it's about 10 minutes. Yeah, about 10 minutes from Taiwan. 10 minutes driving.
Wow. So this was in Korea?
It was in Korea, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And how was this? How did this go over in Korea? Like, did you get a sense of the dialogue or the response from the community around this play?
This type of play was done in a very small theater. So most of the time it was foreigners that would come in to see it. But there were a few Koreans that that enjoy English film or English theater. And those that were there, they really enjoyed it. Yeah. Because we really had a lot of fun doing that play. It was definitely a learning experience. And it was the first time I ever used the Chubbuck technique in my acting. So I was really happy with that one.
Yeah. Going back to sort of the experience of racism that you had when you first got to Korea and attitudes towards Black people or African Americans. And I was curious if there is I know that there's this prejudice against, dark skin or in favor of blonde hair and blue eyes. And like, is that sort of, did you find that it was different depending on whether people perceived you to be American or from some other?
Oh, that's a great question.
Part of the world, like African versus American,
Right. It depends on where you were in Korea. If you're in Itaewon on a Friday night and the Nigerians are blasting their music and you're mixed in with that crowd, there can be a perception there. Oh Lord, he's one of those African guys, or whatnot.
And Itaewon, that's a particular neighborhood that has a particular, what is Itaewon? Is it a neighborhood or a city?
Is the foreign area.
Okay.
Where all the foreign restaurants, where we all go to hang out. There is literally, Rotimi, a urban hip hop club. My first 3 days in Korea, I was in that club. There was not one Korean around me.
Wow.
And it literally felt like I was at a club in America. It was unbelievable.
Amazing.
Just totally weird experience. So yeah, I totally know what you mean, because sometimes it could be determined, oh, you're an American. Ooh, you're a Canadian. You're from Ireland. You're from Australia. Certain perceptions are given because of the country that you're from. I cannot tell you how many people ask me, don't all of you carry guns in America? Isn't that like, are you serious? Some people literally think it's the Wild West and we all just carry guns. have quick draw. We shoot each other, pistols at dawn, all this craziness. I'm like, what? It was so weird. But yeah, sometimes that perception could be given, and also on the flip side, some Korean women like that thug persona.
Hmm.
I don't have that persona in any way, form, or fashion. Okay, so I'm dressed in a long sleeve shirt, a nice sports jacket, some stonewashed jeans, and some boots. They looking for the guy with the hat turned backwards, the jersey sagging the pants. I'm like, hey, if that's what you like, that's what you like. And at first I thought it was just me, but then I met other brothers that were like me, and they were like, nah, bro, they ain't looking for you in that club. You need to go to a different club. They looking for the thug brother over there. It all depends, you know. And then you hear from the foreign women, especially the foreign black women. Oh, none of the brothers want to date us. They want to do something exotic and date the Korean women and so forth. It's a catch-22, no matter which way you flip it. It really is.
Well, was there a distinction that the Koreans made about certain black people? Like, did they consider Africans or Americans less or more dangerous?
If there was, it was never perceived or shown to me in that way,
Mhm.
you know. But then again, that could be because of the way I presented myself, you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you would, I would be interested in knowing how certain people were perceived, you
Mhm.
know, because there was a really bad incident that happened on a bus. Here was a black guy. We never saw his face. He had long dreads or braids. He was talking to the Koreans. The rumor was that the Koreans said nega. Nega means mine,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Or my, right? And of
Yeah.
course, the black person thought he said nigga,
Oh
right?
no.
And let me tell you, there were blows thrown. And this is a young black guy hitting an older man, an older Korean man.
Oh
And then
no.
I heard rumors that he kept his job, that he didn't get fired. There were so many rumors that went around, but we never really knew the truth. The only
Uh,
thing we knew was what we saw on the video, you
mhm.
know?
mm,
So at times like that, it could be tough to convince Koreans that we're not all that way.
mm.
Mm.
That was back then. But now, with I have a friend that's a Korean. He's a model. He's a black man and he's a model in Korea. Not even a problem anymore. You know.
Mm.
So it the time is what changed a lot of things. Because
Mm.
as they say, time heals all wounds. So things started changing after time.
Yeah.
Are there places we can watch your work from Korea?
Yes. You can go to my website at KhalidEliiahTapia.com, but those are only the clips. Most of the Korean films that I did are on DVD, and I had to cut them over and put them
Wow.
on a, on my computer and everything,
Yeah.
cut them and then add them to my YouTube channel and so forth. But any Korean film that you see on my resume, you should be able to type in the English version of the film, and it
Okay.
should pop up for you.
Okay. That's great.
Right. And
I,
Idris, you found some of those films on YouTube, right? Some of
yeah, I found
like Coin Room.
Coin Room on YouTube. I think the last film you made, uh,
Fabricated City.
Fabricated City, I think is coming to Prime Video.
Oh, is it nice?
Or
Okay,
if it's not, you can buy it for $3.99 on Prime Video.
nice.
So I
Very
got that
nice.
on my radar also.
Excellent. Nice. Yeah, that scene that I did. There was a Korean blogger that commented on it and said, these two had the shortest scene, but the most laughs in this movie." And I kept that blog. I put it on my website because that was such a great time. It was like 3 days of shooting. Two of them were out. One was outside, one was at the airport, and one in the studio. And it was phenomenal. That was really a great experience.
Well, I like your comic chops.
I
I love
appreciate that.
watching you in comedy.
Yeah, I know this has been wonderful. Thank you so
It
much,
has.
Khalid,
Oh, no
for
problem, no problem. I
spending
It's
some
was
very
time with us.
eye-opening. And after speaking with Cici Vasquez, who worked in China last week, it
uh-huh.
just opened up so much more. It actually posed more questions than it
Right.
answered.
Mm.
And I think so have you. It just piqued our curiosity
I'm
about
glad.
working outside of the U.S., but particularly in Asia and particularly in Korea. It
Right.
seems really fruitful.
Well, it's amazing because I'm still reaping the benefits of everything that I did in Korea. I just sent, and look at how quick this happens, because usually it's not this quick. This morning at 8:30, I sent an email and it said, international actor with box office hits seeking talent agent. And I introduced myself to this lady. By 3 o'clock, before I got on this thing with the two of you, she sent a message saying, would you like to have a meeting?
Wow.
And that's a combination of the fact that one of my audition coaches is one of her clients, and everything that I and how I presented myself in in the email and all of the work that I've done. So I one day I will be able to thank Korea appropriately. But I
Yeah.
do my best to thank them in everything that I do, because they really opened doors for me. They really did.
It seems like you did some really groundbreaking work in Korea
I
also.
appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and that
Yeah.
you've enriched the culture of Korea through your perseverance and your openness.
Thank you so much.
Well, there seems to be a theme and a message also in these salons that we've been doing. And one is that you don't need to really wait for the moment or wait for the opportunity, that it's really about letting go of expectations and pursuing your dream despite
Mm.
what
Perfectly said.
limitations have that others decide to place on you. Those are
Exactly.
limitations that others put on you, and I really applaud you for that message, because I feel a lot of times what happens in the U.S., particularly with us, with African Americans, is that we embrace a lot of the obstacles
Hmm.
and we allow that into our narrative without
Right.
recognizing that none of us would be here if those obstacles had not been broken every single time. And
Nice.
that, yeah, what you said about the glass ceiling is
Right.
a good takeaway.
Here come a flat top, he come grooving up slowly. He got juice around, but he one holy roller. He got hair down to his knees. Got to be good looking, he just do what he please.
Hi, welcome. We're talking to PJ Phillips, a Bay Area native and internationally black. I would you say chanteuse? I would call you a chanteuse because your music leads you. And
Well, hello. I call myself a lot of things, but most commonly known as PJ Phillips. And I'm very, very thankful to be here and share part of my journey with everyone. I am originally from the Bay Area. I now reside in Hollywood, California.
Oh.
As a lot of people do, they make that switch once they feel like it's time to go. And so my travels led me to, and all of my work that I did in the Bay Area led me to international travel. I started out as a stage artist, like a lot of people, and from choreography. And the job that I booked in Taiwan was a referral from a musical director from a show I choreographed. And he said, "Hey, do you sing R&B, jazz?" And I said, "Yeah." "How do you know I sang?" He said, "You were singing by the piano that one day." And I said, "I only sang like one line."
Oh,
And
that's
so
all it
uh,
takes.
that's all. That's
A
all.
one line wonder.
Yeah, it was just a one liner, and I was just, playing around. I was choreographing Beauty and the Beast at San Jose State, and so
Okay.
that's how the first referral, and that's was probably my second trip out of the country. I've been to other places, but we'll keep it, on Taiwan. And I think that it was a great experience, and clearly there was culture shock when I arrived there, because there was not a lot of diversity in Taiwan, and I did not speak the language. And so I had to maneuver around that, because I sang at this club called Brown Sugar, and they are known for bringing in brown artists. And
Okay.
so I was basically doing a vacation relief for the other full-time brown artists that actually live there. So they do their vacation relief for 4 months at a time.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Okay. So you were in Taiwan for 4 months on
Yes.
this leg of this journey.
Yes, I was originally supposed to be there for 2 months and then go to Shanghai to switch up with another artist, but the Shanghai club began to close around the end of my second month. So they asked me to stay on for 2 months there. And so since it was a little bit more comfortable at that point, I decided to stay, and I'm glad I did. It was a great journey, and it was very different to be playing with players who are all Taiwanese. So there was a Taiwanese band there in place. So I had to forward them along my playlist, my repertoire for that. They wanted very specific music, R&B, disco. I'm blinking.
I, I want to hear more about the kind of disco or your relationship to disco.
Oh yeah, I mean, Last Dance was their favorite tune. That was the dance floor favorite, and I was just like, I felt like I kind of went into this time warp.
So Brown Sugar, the club, because when I think of like a club singer, that almost seems like an almost old-fashioned kind of thing, right? It's not something you see, maybe like a jazz club, but this was sort of like an R&B
It was more like,
nightclub, or
yeah, a commercial. I wouldn't say that it was a nightclub. The Shanghai location was more of a nightclub. This place,
Okay.
I had 3 sets a night, and the first round was dinner guests. So it was just very low key R&B or whatever. And then mid set was like a little bit more up tempo towards the end. And then the last set were people actually coming to the dance floor.
Okay.
But they're well known for their cuisine there, and high end clientele. They had a lot of roped off VIP sections. And I think the first time I witnessed someone ordering food from the VIP section, they don't ask, they clap. Bring me some food.
Oh goodness.
I was like, what? Oh, but that's the deal for the person that's serving. And the interesting thing in terms of the music, what I found to be different is they want you to sing it as written, where we have a lot more freedom here in the States, to where, you have players, it's like, hey, I'm just going to lay back, and they kind of follow you. They were just playing everything very, very straight. And I remember I really got into a huge tiff with the piano player because I was singing something by Adele. And he said, you didn't sing that line. And I said, I'm not singing that line. Well, you need to sing the line because that's how the song is. I was like, this is not America, because, when we're in a set and we're grooving, it's like, yeah. So, a guitar player could hit a big old riff and you're like, oh, that was nice. That was hot. You would never go and say, you didn't play that right, unless it's musical theater, because musical theater is an orchestra. You can't go outside the lines. That was a little bit different. And I remember the first time I saw the sheet music, and it's written how they write. It's not how I was like, well, I can't.
It was in Taiwanese.
It was in Taiwanese, and it was written like that. And I still have it because I thought that was a valuable piece of memorabilia to have, because, it just shows you how different everything is, even though they had a huge appreciation for our music. I lived in an apartment that was an artist apartment, a huge, beautiful studio right in the heart of everything. And I remember the first time I went out grocery shopping, because I waited as long as possible, because I was like, oh my God, there's so many people, I don't speak the language. I just, I had to just, go East Oakland and go, hey, does anybody speak English?
How did that go? You found?
There was always one. There was always one, because I am extremely allergic to seafood, and they put seafood in everything.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
So when oh sorry. So I just wonder when you got hired for this job, and when they fly you over. I mean, how do they set you up? Somehow did they like help you get settled, or you just sort of like on your own to figure out how to over?
they set you up because like I said, they have a specific housing for the artists who live there.
Okay.
And so I was doing a vacation recovery for the artist that was there. It was her normal gig, but so I was there 4 months. I got to the airport, arrived at the airport. There was a driver waiting with my name on the sign, spoke no English. And I was like, am I going to get killed or what? I don't know. But, there was a sign. So I got to the apartment and there were two people there to greet me. One spoke English pretty well. And they basically commandeered my passport. And then I was like, oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, because quite frankly, I've heard stories of people. I know of one actress, I won't say her name, from the US, who tells a story of going to Japan and being told she was going to be on a singing entertainment gig and literally being locked up and put in a sex show.
Yeah, I think Japan is known for that. And when I was younger, I got offered a job in Japan, and luckily we had a family attorney who looked into that, and they were like, don't go.
Yeah.
So that one is pretty well known from that. But I think I felt a lot more comfortable because this person who I was relieving was from the States, a brown woman.
Yeah.
And, so that was more of a referral layered on top of a referral. And actually, I think all of my travels have been referrals. So that's probably why I don't just, take any random email, because you get that too. But so I felt pretty safe, but it definitely was a culture shock. Not just, I had a physical reaction to being there after 2 weeks because my body could not process all the different bacteria that had been introduced. So I was actually a week off. I took a week off because I was very, very ill. But what I did love about their healthcare there is you have the option between Eastern and Western. And for $60, I was able to see the doctor 3 times plus, including my follow-up plus medication for $60.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. But they were very, very understanding there when I didn't feel well. I just, sometimes, when you travel internationally, you're not sick for anything in particular other than your body is not used to whatever cultures are living in that environment. So
yeah. What was you were in Taipei, right?
yes.
What was Taipei like? What was your experience of that city?
The city I had so much fun there. The city was fabulous. What I did love is like you can just go and eat on the sidewalk with some fresh food. Everything was very, very fresh. Not a lot of processed food that I experienced. Even in the restaurant, everything was very fresh, but the nightlife was beautiful. I went to the night market because I had to. I just had to go there. And it is true. You see a lot of dogs walking around, and the style is that they all have their hair dyed. The little dogs are different colors, and that is true. What you see on the film is true. There's chickens like that in the window, like, hey, buy me, and the eye is still out of it partially. You're like, you're walking through it like that, like something's gonna undie and jump on me, but that didn't happen. But yeah, I like going to the restaurants, the night restaurants. I went out dancing one time, and that was very fun. I mean, it was just me in a pool of Taiwanese people. And I did actually meet a few people of color that came into the club, and we were like, hey! And most of the people who were there were either professional players, basketball, stuff like that, or engineers. Yeah.
So you didn't run into any other African-American actors or other singers other than the woman at Brown Sugar? Interesting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It was just a sea of Taiwanese people and me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So it was very, very wild. And I think that to me, it didn't feel like a shock other than like, it just didn't feel, comfortable at first because it's like, you're the outsider, but they kind of know like, oh, you're a singer. Okay, I guess I am. A lot of paparazzi at the airport. Yeah. A lot of paparazzi in the airport. Just they don't even know who you are. They just don't.
Paparazzi? Oh, they're just stationed there in case someone famous shows up, and
Yes.
they assume you're famous because you're obviously
Because
not
you're
from
Finger.
Taiwan.
Yeah. Finger.
Back in Taiwan, let's just show up. Let's just go for the paparazzi. We'll
And
just get off the
dressed to the
plane,
nines. Yeah.
take the pictures, and get back on.
That's pretty much how it was when I felt like that in the airport. I was like, wow. And when they started coming towards me, I was like, oh, where are they going? They're like, oh, you think, so, the interesting thing about traveling and singing international, I think there's a larger appreciation sometimes there for the artistry than it is in the States. We just, I don't really know what it is, but there's so many artists here in the States that it's kind of like, oh, you're an artist, but there it's a different place. And I think I've had the same experience in the other places that I've worked at out of the country.
Where else have
Talk
you?
about some of those.
Yeah, where else have you worked outside of the country?
I worked in Morocco.
Ooh, Morocco. Where in Morocco? I'm in a Morocco kick right now. I'm like reading all these books about
Yeah.
Morocco. I really
Yeah,
wanna go.
Marrakesh. I sang at the
Marrakesh.
Hotel La Mamounia, and that was a very, very interesting experience.
So I actually have a little bit of love for Morocco also.
Yeah, I think that that place was the most fabulous place I've ever sang at and been living at in my entire life, I suppose, even on my vacation travels. The religion is very, very strong there. And my apartment was absolutely beautiful. They have a even higher appreciation for the arts there. There was chanteuse. It was very scary. My first time walking out, I was sprinting. I hike and sprint and all that fun stuff, but I was out running and all of these cars kept pulling over, saying hi. These Arabic men, and so saying hi. And we love you, African. I'm like, you talking to me? Oh yeah, okay, hey. But it was also moments that were scary because I didn't realize that there were a curfew for women at night. And I had a friend come over and visit, and we were walking back from the club because I lived downtown. We were walking back and they said, get home right away. And they kept the light on us until we got to the apartment.
Oh, wow.
So there was that element of it too. But it was probably the first time that I was performing for kings and queens from Africa that looked like me. And so that was just an amazing experience.
Wow.
I was proposed to there.
You said no.
I said no because I got scared. I got scared. So I went on a date with the minister of the Congo. And
Oh, honey.
I took my translator with me. I didn't really realize who this person was because when they came into the club for the first night, I was singing at the Churchill Jazz Bar. So I was singing jazz in this beautiful small place where they sold exclusive cigars, and you couldn't just walk off the street and go to any of the clubs there. You had to be of status to get inside. You have to be dressed a certain way to get inside. And I remember the first time the minister came in, the bartender said, oh, the minister left you, a tip. And I said, what is the minister doing in the club? I said, oh, okay, well, that's how they roll out here. Okay, cool. So he left a huge tip. And I thought, well, okay. So they came back. Well, he didn't come back the next night. He sent his aide back the next night to ask me out. And I said, no, you tell the minister that he needs to ask me out. So he came back and I was like, oh God. So he came back. We went on a date. It was 4 cars. And I had my translator with me because I didn't feel comfortable going because I was like, I could get kidnapped and be lost somewhere. And we went to this house for appetizers, and then we went to this restaurant, which he closed down and wound all the way up to the top of the sky. And yeah, I didn't realize he had a bulletproof vest on until I touched his shoulder to go up the stairs because he had private musicians playing for us. And the Moroccan music to me sounded like jazz music. It was beautiful. But I didn't realize that he was, that powerful until I was like, why does he have a vest? And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow. You need one too if that's the case.
Yeah, I was thinking,
Oh,
hanging out with
yeah,
one of the best. You should be wearing one too. Where's your?
exactly,
Where's your?
exactly. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting next to him. His translator is sitting on his other side, and I'm leaning in towards him because I'm like,
You're like, I gotta get behind this.
Right?
If anything goes down.
This is distance.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So he
That's
came. We
crazy.
went back to this house that he rented for a date, which was $20,000 for the night. And we went back to this house to finish up and have appetizers. And he came out to the pool with a briefcase and opened it up and said, "I want to take you as my wife. You be wife number 2."
Man, honey.
I live in Oakland. Can I be wife from?
We don't do
Can I
that,
come visit once a
okay?
year?
We- Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't
right.
do a 2 thing. But then I thought about it. I was like, where's your other wife? He said, "Oh, she's in the Congo. She'll never leave. I want an American wife." And he said, "I want you to live in New York, and I will only see you 6 times a year because I'm
Oh.
busy."
Well, wait now. Where he at?
Like, oh,
Listen,
this could work. Oh, that could work.
okay, well, maybe.
That sounds like a contract.
It was a contract for sure. But when I got back to my apartment, I researched him and I got scared and I saw these pictures of his castle and I saw people sitting outside begging and I saw the
Yeah,
story that
right.
his cousin is the president and they said that his cousin assassinated the president before him. And I thought, oh no.
Yeah, right.
He wears the
That's what I'm
bulletproof
telling you, because
vest.
in Africa
Yeah.
they kill the wife. They kill the wife first, honey.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
they'll shoot you.
yeah. So it was an interesting time there for sure. Very
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
And how long were you in Morocco? How long were you in Marrakesh?
I was there for 4 months.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, 4 months is sweet. I think that by the time you get to your 4th month, you really want to come home at that point, not because you're not having a good time, but because you begin to miss family and friends or your schedules are so different. And the only thing that saved me is that, I was working late. That was probably the best gig in terms of pay, in terms of how much performance time. I basically had 3 half-hour sets. And so I did the first half-hour set and then they took us to feed us privately and then 2 more half-hour sets and then I was done. So I was really working less than 2 hours,
Yeah.
5 days a week.
The food is good in Morocco.
It's good and it's rich and it's thick and it's like
Yeah.
at a certain point you're like, okay, I don't want no more tagine.
Yeah, they feast.
Oh, it's a feast. Everything's
They
a
don't
feast.
snack.
Yeah, yeah. I still communicate with the music director from Taiwan, and I still communicate with 2 of the people who work at La Mamunia, and they invited me to come back next year. I'm just not sure. Long story, short story. But yeah, and then I was in France for 4 months at Hotel Martinez during the Cannes Film Festival. So that was very interesting. Yeah.
Did you get a chance to experience much of Morocco or Marrakesh, much of the local culture or the local?
Absolutely.
Did you have time? I mean, it seems like you had time. You only work 2 hours a day.
Yeah, I went to Berber country, which was probably maybe like 20 minutes outside of Marrakesh. It's just up in the mountains and to experience how the people from that culture live. Very primitive times, but seemed very happy. There's a cow in the kitchen there. I mean, it was that kind of living. But one of the things that they do still practice, the woman never, I went to the head bartender's house for dinner and his wife was not allowed to come out and speak to me.
Yeah.
She would come and sit the food in this breezeway area. And we ate. I never met her. We never said hi. And that's very, very intense. It's a lot of horny people running around because they're not supposed to have sex before marriage.
Yes.
So that's why I realized why they were trying to pick me up off the streets.
Yeah. It is a horny place. Morocco is a very horny place. I found that true too, because people aren't really allowed to just be sexual, and people are trying to get it everywhere. I saw people having sex in the wildest places.
Yeah.
I saw like
I didn't witness people having sex, but your story is
and I'm curious. I'm curious how, like, what was the experience of being a foreign woman, a woman who was not bound by some of those restrictions necessarily that local women were. Or I guess, did you feel, yeah, what was the experience of being sort of in that in-between place, right? Where you could dine with a man, unlike the wife.
Yeah, it felt from the beginning to end. The beginning was when I first was outside running and didn't realize I had on a pair of shorts, not even a pair of short shorts, just a regular workout outfit, and I didn't realize what that meant to people.
Mm.
And I was already told prior to coming that whenever I leave to go to work, I'm coming in gowns, and because it was a full gown situation, that I had to have my head covered. I didn't have a problem with that. I think what made me feel the most uncomfortable was that the women did not have a voice there. And I was just like, I couldn't or cannot imagine that for myself, just because I'm so outspoken. And, you know, I grew up with my father saying, say what you feel. I don't understand what you're saying. Say what you feel. So that was a huge culture shock for me. And my heart, you know, bled a little bit, because I kind of felt like, you know, I would want these women to have a full experience.
Yeah.
But I didn't try to shake the tree, because I had the ultimate respect from you know, their perspective, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that
Did you
was
get to
probably
make friends with any of the women, any Moroccan women or any?
only the women that worked in the club, and it was very short lived, because they would scatter away whenever a man walked past. So it was very, very interesting. Another
Yeah.
thing that I thought was funny in the market, that you can buy what do they call, dentures?
Oh.
I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, those are teeth, like full grills. Another beautiful thing in terms of the religion, I can hear the call of the prayer every morning, and I actually love that. I could never go into the temple. The women were not allowed to go into the temple. And not even when I was in Taiwan, I had to do it from the outside, or there was a smaller area that women could actually go to.
Yeah.
I struggled a little bit when I was in Morocco. I went to someone's house for dinner, and I had gotten to know the guy pretty well.
Mhm.
And I saw the whole dynamic with the wife not allowed to sit down and talk. And I said, no, 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 no. I can't eat. If she's not sitting at the table, then I don't really want to eat. And they were like, what? And they had a meeting about it. And they looked at me, and she kept saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay. But she really, I could see in her eyes, she was like, go,
Wanted
girl.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was like, tell him, girl.
She
'Cause this
wanted
makes
to.
me mad too. Because she was kind of tense when I came in the house. It was me and a white woman, a woman from France. And I could see her like, she was kind of like, how you gonna bring them up in the house? And now I gotta cook for them. It was kind of, I saw that sister attitude kind of like,
Yeah. What's
and I was like,
happening?
yeah. And they actually said, okay. And they let her sit down. And then everybody kind of relaxed as the music got played and we started singing. And they were really happy about it in the end. They were like, oh, we don't get to hang out with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's totally different, and I think like I had a similar situation of that. Although it was so tense, and I felt like she never even looked up where I could see her. I mean, they're covered. She was covered completely, just her eyes only. And so I can understand how that would feel a little bit liberating for people who don't really get to say anything. I can't even imagine.
And she was young. This was a young couple. They were in their 20s. We were all young back then. We were
Mhm.
all young. And I was I understood. I covered my head and I did those things in certain places. Like I insisted on going in the Moroccan bar, though. I didn't want to go to the European bar. I'm like, I want to drink with the brothers. They were like, oh my God, this American.
Oh yes, you did a lot. You did a little bit extra. I mean, I pretty much stayed in my lane. I did go to a club, and that was fun. But then I was also there during Ramadan too, so that was
But
nice.
see, I wasn't working there. I was just a hippie, traveling, backpacking. I didn't have anybody, you know, who had brought me over
Mhm.
any responsibility really.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get reported.
Yeah, right. And I was the wild American and they kind of tolerated that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 They had a lot of respect for black people, dark skinned people. I felt like that
Mhm.
I could get away with certain things because I was black. They would assume sometimes that I was German or French. They never guessed that I was American, really. But
Mhm.
once they found out I was a Black American, they sort of respected that I had been through a lot, and I got propers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's different a little bit because Morocco is a place where people, Marrakesh especially, they want to go. People want to go there on vacation, so you have a lot of affluent people there who are going home to castles, and they're there for a
Mhm.
couple of weeks, and it's just a different culture, especially the place I was working at. But I was kind of in the area where there were big, beautiful hotels everywhere, and they were very expensive places for people to be traveling to. But there's also, the riads where it's like, people are coming, they're backpacking, they just want to explore the world, and I love that part of it too. Um, but yeah, that was the Morocco experience.
Are you going back? You said you might go back to France, but you
Well,
haven't.
Morocco was the one that they've been emailing about. They're
Oh, Morocco.
remodeling this place, and they were thinking that maybe I could come back in August, but all the pieces have to align. I'm
Yeah.
still in LA working and auditioning and acting and all of those things too. So I think in my mind, I'm thinking, do I want to come back and start over again? Because it's not like you're on vacation 2 weeks and you book off from your agent and say, "Hey, I'll be back in 2 weeks." Like, "Oh, hey, I'll be gone in 4 months." They're like, "Well, you're not. You're off the roster." So it's all of those things to consider. And if the price is right, and I could
The
be off
price is
for a whole
right.
another
Yeah.
year, then maybe, because Morocco
Yeah.
is probably the best contract out of all of those
Yeah.
places.
Well, how does, yeah, I guess you're talking about, your agent or, juggling this with the rest of your career.
Mm.
I'm curious, how does this international travel or international work, how does that fit into your um, overall artistry or your overall even vision of where you want to go or what your art is all about?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. I think that as artists, we ask ourselves that, and we have to reevaluate that. I kind of like to do it every year, and I just recently spoke to my agent about that, and I said, so since I haven't had an agent represent me for any of my international work, I've booked and written my own contracts for those things, and I spoke to my agent about that and said, well, how would you feel if I was gone for 3 or 4 months if I gave you the percentage that an agent would have? And they were like, oh, well, you're on the roster. Don't worry about it. You know, so, I mean, I think that in a way, I look at it as a small insurance policy because, I feel like, especially Los Angeles, I always had an agent in the Bay Area. In Los Angeles, I do have a wonderful agent, and I'm represented across the board now. So, except for my singing,